Hello.
Hello, good afternoon.
So, most of us have all been at home now for at least a week. Some of us for more than a week now. Hopefully we'll get some people joining us soon on our Facebook Live. I don't know if we can
We've
tell
done
if anybody
we've done a
there
series
now.
of videos over the past week. This is episode number 5.
I think so.
So we've been talking about all the various measures that the government have been announcing. Hello, Sally. And we've gone through the various grants and help, whether you're employed or self-employed, small business owners everywhere. And this is really just a quick update, just to answer any questions that any businesses that haven't been able to join us on our previous videos. So if you have any questions, please do let us know. And
So this will probably be our last one, I would imagine, Matthew?
on this series, we may come back online again soon and talk about other topics.
Yeah, we may come back and talk about issues with the coronavirus later on as well, but it all depends on what happens. I imagine now most of the stuff has all been released, everything's just being ironed out. We've just got to wait for things to be up and running, and then we'll be ready to go. So I think from a point of view of us letting you know stuff,
yeah, us in the professional arena, we're still monitoring. There are daily updates with the nuances and procedural things, but I don't think that really affects our clients too much. It's just a case of how we make the claim for your grants, etc., if we need to step in. So for the furloughed employees of our clients, we now have a procedure in which a template letter that we issue to the employees, and a way, the portal's not out yet, but we know how we're going to do the claim. So it's just little procedural things that are being released by the government now. There's no big announcements on the daily briefing, really, is it? They seem to just be talking about number of testing kits available to the NHS, which is not really of interest to our small business clients.
well, it might be, but not from a business
But not from a business point of view.
Right, so we're just going to touch on a few things that have been ironed out to us since our last time that we've spoken. A couple of things here. So as you're aware, the July 2019 self-assessment payment has been allowed to be postponed. So you can, if you want to, not make that payment yet and make that payment after the 31st of July 2020, and you have until 31st of January 2021 in order to make that payment. So that one is automatically deferred. You don't have to make an application for it to be deferred. It's an automatic done. The Revenue have confirmed they're not going to be charging interest, they're not going to be charging penalties if you don't want to make the payment on that one.
And that's actually with the July payments on account, they're based on the previous year's tax return, and if the coronavirus has reduced your income, you may not even have to pay the full amount. So by paying in January, you'll now be paying after you filed your 2020 tax return. So you will have a known figure to pay, so that may reduce the amount that you actually pay.
Yeah. And also, it doesn't apply just to those people that's self-employed. It applies to everybody. So if you're a director company that you have director salary and dividends, then you will just be paying normal. You pay your July payment. It includes to you. You don't have to actually make that July payment as well. That has actually been deferred as well. So you can defer that.
And the same for landlords and people with investment income and that sort of thing who also do tax returns. So everybody who makes July payments is going to get that
deferment. Yeah. Another one is, I would probably say, insurance. If you have been affected by the coronavirus and your business has had to close, it's advisable to contact your insurance broker and ask them to look up to see if you can actually claim anything for business interruption relief or any sort of compensation for business interruption. Some insurance companies are paying up and not all are. So it's probably in your interest, if I was you, to actually phone up your insurance broker and actually find out whether you are entitled to claim or not.
And just another thing for business owners, if you do have business insurance because you have office premises or work premises of any kind, just check with your insurance broker or your insurance company about the fact that you're working from home currently and your premises are empty and unoccupied. A lot of policies have a 30 or 60 or 90-day rule restriction about no one being in the building, and some insurance companies that have had shorter periods have extended it because of COVID-19, but it's worth checking. And if you're going to be off for longer than 90 days, someone needs to be visiting the offices and making sure that someone's been in and checked the premises are okay. Otherwise, you could end up invalidating your insurance.
Okay. So I've got a few things here. So the stuff about furlough and the stuff about self-employment I'll talk about later on. So I'm just going to do the odd bit here as we go along. Many of us are now working from home now. You are permitted to ask your employer to pay you a working from home allowance. Now, as a UK company, as a UK individual, we are entitled to earn £4 a week. That is tax-free money for allowance for our working from home. So that is to cover the additional costs that we have while we're working at home.
Does that go up this week?
That goes up on the 6th of April, which is on Monday, I do believe. So on Monday, the 6th of April, that will go to £6 a week. Now, if your employer is unable to pay you this money, or they basically say no, they're not going to pay you, you can actually make a claim to HMRC for this. And that's normally done on a P87 form. And you would complete the form, inform the revenue of what you want to claim, and they will then give you a refund for the tax. So they treat it as an expense against your tax liability. If you're a 20% taxpayer, then you would get a 20% tax refund on that amount. And if you're a 40% taxpayer or 45, whichever way it is, in that tax year, then that's what you get as a refund.
So a refund of £1.20 a week.
If you're a 20% taxpayer.
If you're a 20% taxpayer.
Yeah, but that's the physical money that you would get if it was went through your tax return. If it's through your employer, then your employer can put it on your payslip, and there is no tax, no national insurance, and it's not pensionable income. So it's worth going to ask your employer for it, because you'll get the £4 a week in that way. Corona scams. Now, there are hundreds of them going round. There are lots of emails going round. There's lots of information about, oh, you're entitled to this grant, contact us, we'll get your details, we'll give you the money. They are scams. So please be aware, don't reply to them, don't send anybody out any personal information or anything like that. The Revenue have confirmed that if they're going to contact you, they're going to contact you via letter or via their portal. They would never just send you a text message or anything like that. The business grants through the council are also doing, I know that they are contacting people, some by letter and some by telephone, but you would then normally log on to somewhere to provide your details and things like that.
Yeah, I know for our clients in Croydon Council, they have been contacted by the council already. Reigate and Banstead Council have online application form that you can go on. You can fill in your details and put in your bank details so that Reigate and Banstead to pay you. Those of us in Tandridge, which is the area that Chubb Consultants are in, you're going to wait a bit longer. They're not ready yet. They haven't sorted themselves out. But they do have a coronavirus section on their website, so you can go and have a look. It basically tells you the qualifying criteria, and it says wait to hear from us soon. So do check your post. If they write to you, they're going to write to your business premises where you pay the rates from. So you might need to go and visit your business premises just to collect your post, just to collect up on that.
So just to confirm on the business grant funding, what is happening is that the money is being paid to the person that was on the rates bill as at the 11th of March 2020. So if whoever's name is on that rates bill at the 11th of March 2020, that is who's going to be receiving the refund or the grant amount of money.
So if you've just moved in after the 11th of March, it's going to the previous owner.
Yes, so you just got to maybe tell your landlords if you're renting somewhere what's going on, really. The local authority, as we've said, will either write to you or call you. They need your bank details. They also need your consent to actually accept the grant. So it's not an automatic payment. They have to actually have your confirmation that you're happy to accept the grant. Some businesses are not happy and do not want it, basically. If they don't need it, they might not want it. But you have to be able to accept the grant. So if somebody says to you, I can just pay it to you, that's not quite the case. They have to actually accept it. So the amounts that you're actually going to get are, so if you are a small business and you pay small business rates and you are not in the retail, hospitality or leisure sector, then your grant amount of money is £10,000. If you are in the retail, hospitality and leisure industry, if your rateable value of your property is up to £15,000, then you're entitled to a grant of £10,000. If your rateable value is between 15,001 and 50,999, your grant amount of money is £25,000. If your rateable value is £51,000, your grant entitlement is 0. So if you believe that your rateable value was incorrect at the 11th of March 2000 and it's in excess of, and it's £51,000 or more, it's definitely worth pursuing with your council to make sure that you are entitled to the money and that you get that entitlement. They have confirmed, most councils have confirmed, that where they know they have a case in hand that's being disputed as to the rateable value, they are actually keeping the money aside, and they're going to keep that money for that business until the matter has been resolved. So if they also believe that your rateable value is incorrect and is too low, shall we say, then they will not pay out the money. So they have said that they will be doing investigations if people's figures are incorrect as well. Government has actually confirmed that all grant money should be received by councils over basically today or tomorrow. So by the end of the week, all councils will have received the money from the government. It is down to them to contact the businesses and then distribute that amount of money. The government has told the councils that obviously this business, the money and the grant money is a lifeline to businesses, and please don't sit on the money. Get it out to your businesses. So we're hoping that if, like Matthew said, not all businesses have been contacted yet, but if there are any, then hopefully they should be contacted next week. So we're going to go to the couple of self-employment points that have come up from our clients, basically. So the rest of the subjects has come up through our clients, and we just thought that way if we pass them all out, then everybody would be able to understand. So in order to claim for the self-employment, and the rules on understanding how much all that is and everything else are in our previous videos, so we're not going to go through all those again. But in order to claim for the self-employment, the condition is that your self-employment has to be 50% or more of your total taxable income. Now that's what they've actually confirmed. So things like that would include. Yeah,
I had a really
stuff,
interesting client this morning who had, in the 2018-19 tax year, had employment income which he finished and then went self-employed. His self-employed income was a bit more for the year than his employment income, so he thought great. However, he's also a landlord, so he has rental income and he had a little bit of dividend income as well. So overall, his employment income was less than his self-employment income, but his self-employment income was less than 50% of his total income. We look at all forms of income. So unfortunately, he wasn't eligible in that case. So you do look at your 2019 tax return, look at the calculation and see all your different forms of income, and your self-employment has to be over 50%.
So it's definitely over 50% of your total taxable income. So the last one I'm going to talk about here is furloughing. Now I have to do a huge shout out to my payroll person at Champ Consultants, and
She's
Sally.
Listening, she's watching.
I have to do a massive shout out to Sally, because without Sally I think I would be completely grey. I'd probably be buried my husband 6 foot under, wouldn't I, Matt? So Sally, you've been a godsend, and thank you so much. So a huge hug, an e-hug, shall we say. So thank you. So furloughing.
She's been a bit busy.
She has, yes. So furloughing employees. So as you know, this is what the government has introduced for people with employees. Now, directors, we do believe that there are a number of petitions going out there. However, we do believe that the government are not going to do anything for directors. Hopefully, I might be completely proven wrong, and I'd love to be proven wrong in this instance. But to tell you the truth, I really don't think I am going to be proven wrong. So, directors, unfortunately, you are entitled to claim under the furlough rule. Now, I have got a piece of paper somewhere, and I'm just going to get this piece of paper.
So, effectively, yes, our directors can furlough themselves. There was a concern at the beginning that directors couldn't furlough themselves because they still have to perform their statutory duties, but we've confirmed that that's okay. Yes,
so as a director, you are able to furlough yourself, and you are not, and one of the conditions of furloughing is you are not permitted to work or generate any money as part of that furloughing as part of being furloughed. Now, as a director, that is very difficult in order to not answer emails, not do your website, or even videos like this. This would be promoting your business effectively, or even just making brand awareness. That's all part of running a business. As a furlough director, you wouldn't be entitled to do any of this. So therefore, it's not possible. However, as a director, you are entitled to furlough yourself and only do statutory duties. And that would include filing accounts, ensuring that statutory documents are filed, and that's it. If you have 2 directors in your company, one director can be furloughed, and that director would only be responsible for the statutory documentation, and the other director is able to run the business and carry on as normal. So if you have got 2 directors in your business, then there's an opportunity there to furlough one and not furlough the other.
Lots of small companies are husband and wife as the 2 directors.
Yes, so example, one could be furloughed and the other one doesn't have to. So that is your furloughing there. The revenue, as we know, the portal, most of these things take at least a couple of years normally to design, develop and implement out there. The revenue are trying to do this in a matter of weeks. So we know that the self-employment one probably won't be ready till the end of May. The employment one, we were actually hoping might be ready a lot quicker than that, but it actually probably looks like the employment one won't actually be ready till about mid-April or even around the 20th of the month. Unfortunately, we do have 4 days off. We do have a long weekend. We have Easter, but I don't think that really makes a difference. Everyone's working 24/7 in the government trying to get everything done. So we don't expect that one to actually be open till about mid-April. What we might actually do in future is, once the portal is actually open, we might actually do a video on the portal, maybe. I don't know, we'll see how that goes, sort of thing.
Joanne has just asked a question: can 2 directors be furloughed?
Yes, of course. You can. If you've got 2 directors in the company and they're only 2 directors, you can both be furloughed. If you've closed the doors of the business and you know you're not going to be working on the website, you know you're not going to be generating any business, you know you're not going to be doing anything, then yes, of course, you can furlough both directors.
But if you want to carry on servicing clients, you can't.
No. If you've closed your doors, you've closed your doors.
And Mark says you might need to dig your hole a bit more than 6 feet because I'm taller than that.
Well, I don't know, Matt. I can go down. It might be taller this way, but not that way. So, also, it is also possible to furlough somebody. Now, you've got to furlough them for a minimum of 3 weeks, and we've discussed all this in our previous videos as well. So you can furlough somebody. Then, example, let's just say April. We know April is going to be really, really, really quiet. We can furlough somebody in April. And then at the end of April, beginning of May, we see actually it's picking up again. So we can contact that person that was furloughed and say to them, actually, I'd like you to come back to work now. Now, when you've been furloughed for somebody, you're effectively still employed by that person. So that means you're still entitled to your holiday pay. You're still entitled to sick pay if you're sick. You're still entitled to maternity and paternity pay should anything happen. You're still entitled to all the benefits. Now, because you're still employed, basically it means you're not allowed to go out and work for someone else. Because what the furloughing does, it's a benefit system. So if you are furloughed and you're receiving your money and then you go out and get another job, then effectively what you're doing is fraud in the benefit system. So you are not entitled to go out and get another job. If you already had a job before, then that's fine.
But you can volunteer.
You can volunteer, of course.
You can go and work for a charity for the next month if there's something that you can do from home or away from anybody else and they need some help. So have a look. I mean, the NHS are asking for volunteers. There's lots of different charities that are really struggling right now. The charity shops are not open, but they're struggling for income. So if you feel like doing some volunteering, that's perfectly fine. You can't go out and get a paid job if you want to keep your furloughing benefits from your employer.
So yes, so once you've been furloughed, you're now available for when that employer says to you, I need you to come back to work again, you're ready to go back to work. So it is possible to furlough somebody, say for the month of April. The month of May, they actually physically work for you and they go back to their 100% salary and everything else. And then let's assume furloughing still exists in June, because we know it's only until the end of May, but let's assume for this example it's still around. Then you furlough them again in June, example. That is possible. You can furlough somebody, get them back to work again, and then furlough them at a later stage. You can be furloughed more than once. So that is possible. Now, obviously, we don't know, and what we're not aware of is how long this furloughing is going to last. We know that the government have actually told us that, sorry, I'm laughing here because Adrian has said that I can pronounce it now. I don't call it the F word anymore. I can actually say it now, can't I? I've said it enough times. So, yeah, you completely lost my train of thought there, Adrian. Thanks a bunch.
It took me a while to educate her on the pronunciation.
So yeah, so basically we know that the furloughing is only there till the end of May. However, the revenue and the government have actually said that the rules for self-employment and for furloughs can be extended beyond that, and I imagine they would make up their mind sometime in May.
I think it's highly likely it will be extended, don't you think?
Well, probably.
Given the course of the announcements and the number of cases and everything else that's going on.
We haven't reached our peak yet, have we?
We haven't reached the peak. I think we'd be very lucky if it all ended in May.
Well, we are talking end of May, aren't we? So we have got another 2 months
I'm still
to go.
thinking that's optimistic. We need to be planning as businesses for a little bit longer.
So, yeah. So, also under furloughing, while you are furloughed or not furloughed, while we're in the coronavirus stage, the government, I keep saying the revenue, but it's the government effectively. The government have said that any unused holiday pay will be permissible to be carried forward for 2 years. Now, if companies have employment contracts that basically say you cannot carry forward holiday pay, this actually supersedes that. Because this is
the government rules supersede.
The government rules supersede your employment contract. So your government rules basically say that any unused holiday, now the minimum statutory holiday requirement is 28 days, including bank holidays. Now, if we are coming up to 2 bank holidays this month and 2 bank holidays in May, if your employees should use those bank holidays as bank holidays and not work, if they're working from home or anything else, then that's fine. But then the rest of their holiday pay is then to be carried forward. Now, if an employee is furloughed in that time, they're not using their bank holiday entitlements. So they are then carrying forward that holiday pay.
You are accruing your days and your pay,
yes.
And the employer is not allowed to prevent you from carrying it over to next year.
No. So the employer has to allow you to carry it over for 2 years. So, yeah.
So the travel industry, which is really struggling at the moment, is going to have a bumper year next year, maybe.
Well, let's hope so.
Let's hope so.
So we'll all have bumpy years.
If the airlines are still in existence
we'll
next year.
We'll all have bumpy years. So, yes. So I think that's all the points that I've listed below. I don't know if they've got any questions.
Yeah, Adam's come up with a good question. He says, I read employees can be furloughed by multiple employers. Is that right?
Yeah, so that's correct, Adam. So if at the end of February, so furloughing is calculated based on your February pay. If your February pay was very low or wasn't what I would call a normal monthly salary, then there is a special way of calculating what you're entitled to and how much you can claim. But
this is also for part-time employees who have multiple jobs. So
yes, or
you might
0-hour
be working-
contracts and
You
stuff
might be
like that.
working in a day job, one place, and in the evening you're working in a sports centre or a cafe or something.
Yes.
You'll get furloughed by multiple employers, and yes, you'll get your 80% of pay from each of them.
Yes. So you are entitled to be furloughed by more than one employer.
That's just sort of an interesting question there.
So, yes.
If you have multiple jobs,
Yes.
and your 80% from each of them might be, let's say you've got 3 jobs and you get £1,000 from each.
Yes.
That would, but 80% is £1,000 each. So that's 3,000. So can you get more than the 2,500
Yes,
limit?
it's 2.5
It's
per
employer,
employer,
isn't it?
Employer can only claim more than 2.5. So if you had 3 jobs paying you £1,000 each, example,
Happy days.
then that's £800 across the board, which is 8, 16, 24, which is 2,400.
That's fine.
So you would get. So
But yeah,
you'd get that.
Yeah, you get the full amount. Excellent.
So in reply to that, Adam, yes, it is correct. You can be furloughed by more than one employer. Yes, the employers are acting like the benefits scheme, basically. We are the benefit bureau for the government.
And if you get furloughed by one and not by the other, that won't prevent you from claiming your furlough. The furlough rules about going to get another job only applies to new jobs. It's not about ones that were already in existence during February.
Yes. So what the situation there is that they also say that if you've already got one job and then you go and get another job, then if you've already got one job and then you've got the other job, let's say, Adam, where you've got 2 jobs, you're not supposed to, so you get furloughed from one, you're not supposed to go back to the second one and say to the second one, actually, do you know what, instead of doing 2 hours a week, I can actually do 20 hours a week now. You're not permitted to increase your hours.
Yeah.
No.
Adrian's come up with a good question. Do you know on what kind of contracts the supermarkets have taken on their extra staff? Now, that does pose an interesting question because the supermarkets have taken on a lot of extra staff. But remember, the self-employed, they can claim their benefit, their grant system, and they're still allowed to work.
So, yes, so self-employed people are still permitted to work. They're allowed to work. Students, obviously, don't know if you've been to supermarkets. There's a lot of students in those
specifically
supermarkets.
One of our clients who's self-employed and is now working in one of the local supermarkets for extra income, and he did that very quickly on the basis that he can still claim the benefits on his self-employment.
So yeah, self-employed people can. Now there are a lot of, and it's a really easy system to basically manipulate, and I have to be honest, it is very easy to manipulate, because as an employer, if one of my employees say to me, I ask that employee, can you be furloughed, please? I ask you, I need you to be furloughed. We'll talk about that in a second. I say to that employee, I need you to be furloughed. That employee says, yes, no problem. They go and be furloughed. I give them 80% of their pay to a maximum of £2,500. Now, if that employee then goes out to Tesco's or one of the supermarkets and says, okay, I'm looking for another job now, it's down to that person then to come back to me and say to me, actually, I've got myself another job now. So you basically, you're not going to be furloughing me anymore. I'm going to be resigning. So there is an element of honesty, and I think that's just the way it's going to have to work, is honesty on that matter.
And a couple more questions coming in. So Joanna's asked, do employers have to close their doors in order to furlough employees, or can they continue to operate and only furlough some employees?
Yes, Joanna, you don't have to furlough all your employees. You can furlough one. You can, depends on how big your business is. You can, basically, the point of furloughing somebody is that that person's role doesn't really need to be done at the moment, let's say, or is effectively redundant. So the alternative to saying to that person, I don't need you anymore, your role is now redundant, under normal circumstances, if business had declined and you didn't need that person anymore, you would probably make them redundant because their role is no longer required. However, what the government is saying is that instead of making that person redundant and basically saying to them, look, I'm sorry, we don't need you anymore, I can't guarantee you an income, that's it. What we're saying to them is, in this hard time, I don't need you anymore, but, sorry, I'm just writing something down, employee furlough, because it's going to remind me in a second. I don't need you anymore, and therefore please be furloughed, which means that I'm guaranteeing to give you 80% of your money. That's basically what you're saying to somebody by furloughing them, and it's your discretion as an employer to decide who you want to furlough and who you don't want to furlough. And as long as you're doing whatever you need to do on the right basis, then you're completely fine on that point of view.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Adam's asked another question. I'm not sure I quite understand. He asked the question earlier about multiple employers furloughing. He then said, one more thought, does this still apply if they are full-time and still in work, or just part-time out of work? I'm not quite sure what he means by that. Could you explain a bit further, Adam, what you're trying to get at there?
So does this mean apply if they are full-time and still in work, or just part-time out of work?
I think we're out of context now because we must have said something that he's referring to specifically.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think Adam,
You might have replied saying thank you, and I think this is right. Okay, if they're full-time in another role, can they be furloughed by a part-time employer?
Yes. So if you've got two jobs, one of them is full-time, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, and the other job is a part-time pub, let's say Friday nights and Saturday, and the pub has furloughed you, but your full-time employer hasn't, then yeah, your part-time job furloughs you, and your full-time job you can keep going. Yep, you can do that as well.
Peter's joined us. He says, any thoughts on how the revenue are going to police this?
They have said that they are going to do checks. The revenue have said that they are going to do spot checks, and they will do audit checks, because they do believe that not only will it be manipulated against the employee, because obviously if the employee has carried out activities that they shouldn't have, then the revenue will go back to the employee and ask them for that money back. But if the employer suddenly appears to suddenly have all these new people on their payroll in February that they never had before, and they're claiming furloughing for all this amount of money, then they would have to pay that back. And these are fraudulent activities, so the penalties will be high in these instances, because you've purposely gone out and carried out fraudulent activities on both parties. And the revenue have said, the government have said, they will do spot checks and they will check them. So I imagine that come later on, that will all happen. I have put here furlough employees. Now, what I meant by this is that when you furlough an employee, you have to ask the employee if they want that you are going to furlough them. When you do your letter to the employer, you have to have it in writing. It is sometimes a take out of contract, and therefore you have to have it in writing. So therefore, in writing, you would actually have it signed by the employee and the employer. Now, as an employee, if you decide you do not want to be furloughed, then effectively what you're saying to your employer is, I never want to work for you again. Because what you're doing by furloughing somebody is you're saying to them, okay, I'll put you on hold, but once the business is back and operational again, I want you back on board again. So that's what you're saying. If the business later on, when the furlough rules stop, and say the furlough rules stop at the end of May, and the government say, we're not extending the furloughing funding anymore, as an employer, you have two options then. One, you take that person back on as a full-time employee, or two, you make that person redundant at that time.
Well, if you say no to the furlough, the employer can make you redundant straight away.
Exactly.
There's no work for the company to give you. They'll make you redundant.
So as an employee, if you say no to your furloughing, effectively you will be made redundant from day one. From that point on, you will have no source of income, and your only source of then income will be the benefit scheme, which will be one of your benefits, unless you're able to go out and get another job somewhere else, obviously. And as an employer, from a duty point of view, once we come out of the furloughing scheme, you're not legally obliged to take that person back on full-time if that role no longer exists, or if it's a full-time role and you only need it at part-time, then obviously that's not required anymore, and therefore you don't need it as much.
Okay. Sian on the Wallingham page has come up with a question, and she says, I'm self-employed and I'm waiting for the 80% in June. I am in the process of claiming universal credit. Will we still get universal credit after June, or will that stop because I will have received the 80%? Well, universal credit is based on not working, not on income, is it?
Yes.
Now you have to be careful, because effectively self-employed people in June are going to get a quarter of their earnings, 80% of a quarter of their earnings for the 2018-19 year. So they're going to get lump sums, and the maximum is £2,500 a month.
Yeah.
So they could be getting lump sums of up to £7,500. You are not entitled to universal credit if you have total savings and cash in your bank account of £16,000 or more. So if you've got more than 16,000, you can't claim universal credits, and you're expected to spend your money, your own personal savings, and once it drops below 16, you can claim again. So certainly for sure, if that £7,500 lump sum pushes you over 16, you're going to no longer be entitled to universal credits, and it's up to you. You must tell them that you're no longer entitled. Don't think it's based on income though. That's that 7.5. I don't think it's going to affect your payment out for June because you're not working and you're not earning. So
well, the payment is actually covering March, April, May.
yeah.
So your self-employment of £2,500 a month actually covers March, April, May.
As part of your universal credit application, they'll be aware of your circumstances, and you have to declare everything anyway. So they'll take into account all of that. But certainly, it's going to be a helpful lump sum for our self-employed clients. But just be aware of that £16,000 limit.
And Lat has raised a point here, and she said that remember your national insurance number. So going back to the question about how the government can actually police this, remember if you go out for another job, like working in a supermarket, and you give your you have to give your national insurance number. It's part of your payroll system, and so the government then will know that you're working for some supermarket, and then on your actual physical pay slip, if you've been furloughed, it actually has to have that separately. And also on the portal's website, when we actually put the details in to claim for that portal, for that person under furloughing, we have to actually put your national insurance number in there. So the national insurance number is a bit like your fingerprint. So the revenue are going to know if you're claiming furloughing, and they know if you've gone out and got another job since claiming furloughing. So that's another way that they're going to be able to police it, I do believe. So yeah, thanks for that.
As an employee, I think if you are receiving 80% pay from your employer's claiming the 80%, not knowing if you go out and get another job. But when they get refused the 80%, your employer's going to want to claim that back from you because you went and got another job, and then potentially he's going to make you redundant, of course.
A lot more as well, probably.
Okay. Another question in. Paula, I'm self-employed and had to close at the moment. Can I claim universal credit if your partner is working? Do they take into consideration their income?
Yes, universal credit does take into account joint income. So on the government website, there is calculations on there on the calculations whether you're a single parent, a multiple parent, whether you've got one income, two incomes, and depending on that, then they do take into account how much, and the amount of money you can actually claim varies. So you would probably be better off looking onto the website to see how much you can claim and whether it's actually making it worth
check the
taking that claim
universal
on.
credit section, because there's different bits. There's the basic bit, there's the extra £1,000 uplift a year at the moment, and there's the housing benefit element. So there's lots of different parts. So I would suggest you crack on the universal credits part of the government website.
And there's also working tax credit as well. So remember, you've also got the working tax credit that you can claim as well. So don't think that it's just universal credit or nothing. You have got the working tax credit in there as well, and if you've got children, you've got the working family credit as well. So there's a whole range of options there, so just be that aware. One final thing that I've just remembered is that on the business interruption scheme loans, we have had a couple of comments made from I don't know, organisations, I suppose is the right word, that some banks are charging very, very high interest rates.
Yeah, I've had 30% from one client.
Exactly. So when you go for if you decide to go for a business interruption loan, as you know, the first year interest is tax-free and funded by the government. But after that, interest rate is payable. And it's worth keeping an eye on that, because obviously at a 30% interest rate, that's one hell of a lot of interest. It's a lot more than credit cards. So it is just obviously worth keeping in mind that once that year's finished, either pay off that loan or make sure that you've got it funded some other way so that you haven't got that amount of interest. And just make sure that there's no penalty clause in there for funds taken off that loan after the first year.
And as we said on previous videos, make sure they're not asking you for personal guarantees either, because they will supersede any government guarantee that's being offered. Another question here from Karen. Is there an estimated date when HMRC will write to self-employed individuals saying they qualify to claim the 80%?
At the moment, there is none. However, I speculate, this is just a Chantal speculation, that they might actually kill two birds with one stone. And on Monday, we enter the 2020-21 tax year. Those on self-employment will then start receiving letters from the revenue to say that your 2020 tax return is now due for filing by 31st of January 2021. They might take it at that time to then start contacting people. That's just a Chantal speculation, because otherwise there's going to be a hell of a lot of trees being killed just to...
They could add an extra paragraph to that letter, couldn't they?
They could if they've got a bit of common sense, but let's just say they don't always have common sense.
It may be a separate communication, it may be combined.
Yeah, considering probably that the scheme is actually not going to actually be paying out any money until the end of May.
End of May?
End of May, beginning of June.
Beginning of June.
End of May, beginning of June is when they speculate that they're actually going to physically make that payment. They're hoping it will be nearer to the end of May, so that then most people will have their money by then. But I imagine that it's just going to take them a long time to get all this going.
Yeah,
I think that's all our questions.
I think that's it. That's it for all the questions from everybody today.
Right,
So,
hope you found that informative. Obviously, we've covered loads of stuff in the past. You are welcome, and please do go back and have a look, or listen to, shall we say, our YouTube videos, and they can be found on YouTube under Champ Consultants. All our videos are there, including this one, which will be on there later on today.
I'm just going to put a link in the comments of this video, just so that people can find that YouTube, and they can see all 4 videos. This one will be loaded later today.
We've done, as Matthew said, we've done 5 videos now. Going forwards, we probably won't be doing we won't be doing them on a regular basis, because I think we're all getting quite exhausted with the amount of legislation and rules that are being passed out. However, should something happen and something amazing be implemented, I think we've had quite a lot implemented. Now we just need it all rolled out, shall we say. We need to all start receiving some of this money that we've all been promised. Then we will do another video. What we will probably do is we will announce the video on our social media platforms. So we have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and on our social media platforms we will announce the next video, which will be whatever it will be on. And you're very welcome to share the video and to tune in. One of the videos that I'm probably going to be doing over the next week or so is that, probably next week, is mainly for furloughing people. So if you know anybody who has been furloughed, who's sitting there at home twiddling their thumbs thinking, what can I do? What can I do? So much painting I've done all the DIY, I've done the garden, I've done everything else. Do you know what? I think I fancy starting my own business. Or if you think to yourself, okay, this is something that I can start a business, I can run a business. We're probably going to do a Q&A session for people who are thinking of starting their own business. They've got 1,001 questions they want to ask. And we'll just do a free Q&A session on that next week. We will announce that probably over the weekend or on Monday, once we've decided on what day we're actually going to do it on. But if you've got any other topics you might think, oh yeah, that'd be quite good, then please do get in contact with us. You can get in contact with us by any of our social means and let us know what topics you want to do, and we'll be very happy to do them.
Brilliant.
I think that's it for today. Thank you for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed today's video, and please do share it with anybody else you might need to.
Brilliant.
Make sure you stay safe and make sure you stay home.
Thank you very much. I'm just about to end the video, and I'll put a link in the comments to our YouTube so you can see the other videos. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.